I started off by just thinking about, actually, when I was at uni, I went to Student Job Search to find a job over a holiday period, and of all random jobs, I got a job working for, it was at Ruakura, and we were smelling smells on behalf of the meatworks in Horotū.
Oh.
And they were trying to establish how much smell could emit from their processing plant without impacting their neighbours.
Yeah, because I actually remember driving past that place over the years, and everyone would be like, oh, the smell. You knew you were coming up to the meatworks.
Yeah, it still smells a bit, but it doesn't, I don't think it smells as much as it used to.
You might have been, you had a part to play in this smelly little business.
Literally. So yeah, we had I had a desk in front of us with 3 tubes that there was air flowing up through the tubes and out into, up into a machine they were cycling around. But you could pull a tube forward and smell it and then let it go, and it would return to this circuit that it was flowing through. And what they would do was they had just clean air flowing through the circuit, so you had to smell all 3. They'd sort of beep and you smell all 3, and you're like, yeah, I don't know which one you're putting the smell through. And then they'd put a little concentration of the smell through one of the tubes. And so then when they had done that and told us, we would smell all 3 tubes, and we would either go, yeah, I don't have no idea still, or you might go, oh, I'm starting to think I might be able to smell it in tube 2. And so you'd sort of click tube 2, but then there'd come a point at which oh no, it's definitely in tube 3 or whatever, right. And you realise that was just a guess, whereas this one is definitely. And so you'd sort of, nothing, and then at some point you go, actually it's this one. And so that's what they were measuring, was how strong could they get the smell before we would recognise it. And anyway, so I did that for about a week.
I'm glad you didn't say a year, Denise. I don't even know how you could have done it for a week, but there you go. Okay, carry on.
But that's what you do when you're a student. I mean, it's probably as a job I've tried to sort of fit into my CV occasionally.
How would you put it? Smelly smells. I've got a good sense right there.
I just don't know that it would benefit me for putting it in there. But it was just quite an unusual experience. So yeah, it was fun. And yeah, so I was thinking about that. So when we did that role, at first they did a sensitivity test of how sensitive our smell was. And so of all the people who had applied, they kind of assessed us, put us on a scale, and then chopped off both ends. So the people who really couldn't smell much, they excluded them, and the people who were super sensitive, they're just like, oh my gosh, you're going to be smelling everything.
Right.
So no, we don't want that either. We want the average Joe Blogs person who's likely to go past our plant or a neighbour.
Yeah.
What can they generally handle? So yeah, so that's just a sense, and it's an unseen sense.
Yeah.
And then when you think about our other senses, so you've got smell and you've got taste. Well, people have different tastes, but you don't generally know what someone else's taste buds do until you try and offer them a spicy meal or something. There's some people who have texture issues. I've got somebody I know who's
a little bit that way.
If it's
texture.
Too crunchy or too this or too that, they're like, no, not eating that, or too slimy.
That's the one. Right there.
So there's different things, but you don't know that about a person when you first come across them. But you soon, the more you spend time with them and the more you share a meal, which is often a sign of building a relationship. Let's go out for a coffee, or let's go, come over for a meal. The more that you do that, the more that you get to know that person's sensitivity to taste. And then you think of sight and hearing, and if you've got good sight and hearing, well, yay. If you've got a lack of sight or hearing, well, we've got devices available that can improve them. If you've got really acute sight or hearing, then people kind of go, oh, wow.
You notice everything. Well, you can hear that person over there.
Yeah.
I think you've got that in your blog somewhere, huh?
Yeah.
Of a guy that could hear a conversation over at the bridge or something, and you were like, you're kidding, no way.
I know.
There's just no privacy anymore.
I was like, I've got to talk really nicely to my dog.
That guy can hear me. Yeah.
I didn't ever hear it from him direct. I hardly ever talked to him, but I heard that he could hear when people were coming over that bridge, that he could sort of, there's some people that he looked at and went, man, they're really negative, because he could hear the way they talk to each other as they were coming. And
Careful out there, folks. There is nowhere you can hide. There's always somebody with a heightened sense out there.
Yeah, so it's like a superpower, and it was interesting because I had this friend who came over yesterday because it was Pea Soup in Hamilton. It was lovely here, and I was like, I'll do my blog and I'll post it like before you get here, and I just finishing it. She arrived. I was like, I'm just putting on the pretty pictures, and then I went and sat down with her, and she's just like, so what was your blog about? So I told her it was about sensitivity and stuff, and she's like, is that hyper or super? And I was like, oh, I like that. So hypersensitivity you kind of think of as actually a negative thing, but when you see it as a superpower, then it's positive. So
So is your superpower sense your nose, like sniffing? Like,
No.
Smell, there we go. I was trying to think what it is.
I have to be in the average range, otherwise they would have kicked
That's
me
right.
out.
Yeah, I was listening, but you're right. So, okay, that's not it.
But yeah, so a lot of the senses we think, like sight and hearing, like it impacts our everyday and the way we go about life. But there are other senses, so that's just your 5 physical senses, touch included. I do talk about touch very briefly in the blog, but people have other senses, like they might sense danger, like what you were actually saying before with when Roger was here. It's like you had this, actually you heard an audible voice that was like, get out of here.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't normal.
No.
That wasn't you.
No.
But you were able to sense this voice that's like, move now, and you did, and it made a huge difference.
Yeah, I think there was the audible voice I heard, but there was a sensing that went with it too, Denise. Yeah, you're right. Of urgency that was in my whole being, that I couldn't ignore, or there was no logicking. I mean, I was 8 years old. I was a kid. There was no denying what I heard, but also what I knew I had to do. Yeah, in that moment. So, and without that, I wouldn't be here. And I've got quite a few little experiences like that over my life, which I'm really grateful that God is intent on me to live. Because there's many times I'm sure that I could have been taken out, for sure.
So that sort of thing. And so, I called the blog Read the Room, because, some people when they walk into a room, as I said at the beginning, you can walk into a room and if everybody's grumpy, you tend to err towards grumpy. I think some people feel it automatically when they walk in the room. Some people just start listening to the conversation and just kind of come into agreement with the conversation. And it affects some people more so than others. So I was thinking about it from that becoming unoffendable position. I'm thinking about the emotions going on in a room. And I'm thinking about some people like our smell and our taste. We don't know what their baseline is when we first meet them. But the more we get to know them, the more we get an idea of what their sensitivity is like.
I was thinking about this because looking back at my younger years, a lot of trauma there, so I had a heightened sensitivity in me. I could, like you say, read a room. If I walked in somewhere, I knew where the exit was, I knew where to stand in the room, I could tell which probably was the safest place to be, because I put myself in a really dangerous situation. So I was in a very heightened state all the time, and I could read that room like a book. And I used to think that was, I never thought of it as a superpower, but I probably used it in my life. But that doesn't mean I was always correct, Denise, because because I was coming from a place of trauma. I was looking for the issues. I was looking, where is the danger here? Not where the peace is, not where the goodness is, but where's the danger here? What do I need to be aware of? What do I need to stay away from? What do I need to protect myself from? And so those senses in me were very heightened, and you know, as I came into my faith, you know, those senses in me didn't dull out, because discernment, you know, you talk about this in your blog, started to come forward, and with that came wisdom. And so I had to work through a lot of issues to be able to get to a place where my discernment was more front and centre than my trauma.
Right, yes, and so that was a really interesting thing. So when my friend said that about, is it hyper or is it super? Because I used the word super all the way through the blog, but it was after I finished it, she asked me that question. I was just like, whoa. But I think I mean, this is just me putting it on it afterwards, but the way that I think about that is that almost hypersensitivity I would think of as having a negative connotation, and perhaps the immaturity of not knowing how to manage it. So if you're walking into a room and it's from trauma-based and you're trying to protect, you might overreact to circumstances and all that sort of thing. Whereas when you're talking about later on as you matured in that, I'm thinking of that as super, because you can sense things.
Yes.
And now you've got wisdom in how to, you know, sensing or discerning things. Now you can actually stop and use wisdom in how you interpret it and how you apply what you're interpreting,
for sure.
and who you share it with, and how you respond. And at that point, once you're actually gaining some form of process or control or management of your own reactions to it, because you've matured into it, now it's actually something that's really helpful, because you've identified stuff. You now know that that person has got whatever you've sensed, but you don't know why. You don't know what's gone on for them. So, you know, now you could perhaps ask a really helpful question to get, you know, maybe it's a sort of encouragement for them, because you're like, man, that person there is really down. You know, what's going on for you at the moment? Which nobody else actually might have picked up.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is something too now that I don't have to protect myself anymore. I mean, I'm not in those situations where I'm looking for the danger. So, you know, that's been thankfully taken out of my life, and so discernment now, or my sensing, it is very strong in me. But yeah, it's not so much reading the room anymore. I can sense, I think, when I feel God's Spirit, you know, or when I meet somebody and I feel like I can connect with them, there is a sensing there, almost like an alignment with that person, that, you know, they're for my good, you know.
Yes.
You know, they're not for my detriment, this person, you know, and sometimes that can be tough, because the person, you know, you know the sensing in you that this person is good, but sometimes what they want to say might be challenging for me. And so I've learnt to move past the challenge and accept it as a growth.
Right, wow.
Yeah, and I mean, this is what I love about my faith, is that it's not simple and it's not easy. It is always about our personal development and how much are we willing to allow God to take more space in me than me take more space in me, you know, and allowing Him to work those hard edges out, those craggly rocks, you know.
Well, there's that iron sharpens iron.
Absolutely, and over the years, I've become a honed sword. So I only strike when it's necessary now.